Hello, I'm Jamie Caniglia, and I am joined here by student body presidential candidates Chris Glogan and Ted Dolce. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourselves and what you're running for? Would you like to start, Chris?
Sure, of course. Hi guys, I'm Chris Glogan. I'm a junior here at Marist. I'm a communications major with a concentration in advertising and public relations. I first got involved in SGA about a year and a half ago. I've always been passionate about the role that I'm in. Currently, I'm in the Speaker of the Senate role. And I honestly feel like now is my time to really be for the students. Like I said in my speech last night, I'm here for you guys. I've always seen students come up to me. I love meeting people and really just getting to know the real Marist. So I really want to showcase that and really say, it's here for you guys now, and here's my time.
Okay. Ted, would you like to share about
Sure.
yourself?
My name is Ted Dolce. I'm from Miami. I'm currently a junior studying criminal justice and communication. I started in SGA my freshman year, but I've been in and out because I didn't really like the structure and how SGA conducts itself at Marist. So that's basically why I've been involved and how long I've been involved.
So when did you realize you wanted to run for SGA president?
Sure. So I got involved in SGA about a year and a half ago, like I said. One of my best friends actually got me involved, and I saw the structure as it was, but I also felt that there needed to be some change. I really felt that the past presidents did the job that they were supposed to, but there was something missing. And in my opinion, that was the real issues and the real things that we wanted to get accomplished. So I got involved, I immersed myself in trying to figure out what needed to be changed. I saw that communication was something that I really wanted to hone in on, and that's why I got very inspired. Brandon Hurd was somebody that I really looked up to, and to do that, to see that throughout my time, it really inspired me to be student body president. So.
Before I answer my question, I just want to introduce Nkofa Billups, who is my VP that I'm running with. I just want to make sure that we recognize her. Also, I thought about running for SGA last semester because people were telling me to run for SGA, not because of me specifically wanting to. And it wasn't until I spoke with Nkofa and I told her, look, you and I, we have a great chemistry and how we work together, our work ethic, it comes from the heart. And I said this in my speech last night. And she was a little bit more hesitant than I was, but eventually we ended up making a decision, and now we're running and we're doing it as we would like to.
So what are some of the issues on Marist campus that you kind of want to fix if you're elected? Maybe both of you want to add?
Also, I'd like to introduce my candidate,
Thanks.
John Ferris. John, you want?
Yeah, so I think that Chris and I have talked a bunch about what we would sort of do in like our first couple months after being elected. One of the biggest issues that we see, just in terms of like our own involvement in student government and other clubs on campus, as well as talking to a whole bunch of people who aren't involved in student government, is that there isn't a strong sense of student representation in student government or in terms of like the administration. So I think one thing that's really important to Chris and I is sort of we want to start doing more like public forums, more like meetings. We can bring in a bunch of students and say like, okay, so like these are the issues that we're hearing. Let's, instead of, these student government officials who many of people don't know, solving these issues, let's include the students and say, like what are solutions that would work for you? And, working in terms of like that layer of the problem, as well as student government and as well as more, administrators who work in Greystone, getting everyone involved is going to be the way to fix most of these issues.
One of our largest things is to bridge the gap between the students, the student government and the students.
Okay. And what are some issues that you're focusing on in your campaign?
For me, I'm certainly a novice to student government here at Marist, but not to the system of student government, thankfully. But I think here, standing on the outside, I didn't even realize all of the functions that student government had up until about a year ago. And luckily I've only been on campus since my sophomore year, but learning a lot about the functions of Marist College and all that we can do by creating a system of communication. And I think that's what Ted and I really work on now, is working with students in all of the work that we do in Black Student Union and ARCO and the diversity and inclusion boards is working with students in order to create the change that students would like to see and harping on their talents as well and using ourselves simply as a platform because we got to the places that we are now due off of the backs and the talents of those who have come before us. And we want to continue to hold on to that legacy here at Marist and propel students and their ideas forward as well.
I agree with everything she says.
I guess you make a good team. Okay. So, many students at Marist are not really aware of what SGA does. So, could you briefly explain what your role as student body president would be?
Sure. Well, SGA itself at the moment is the student leaders on campus. You know, it's our job to listen to student concerns, hear what they have to say, and to really understand what we need to improve on. You know, we focus on clubs, we focus on initiatives that we want to work on, and there's senators and also the executive board that listen to those concerns. Student body president-wise, I would say that me and John are really focused on the communication side of it. We want to make sure that we're listening to the students, and that's what John was talking about with the open forums. We really want to get that feedback and really understand what the concerns are. And representation is absolutely huge for us. We want to go out into the community and say, listen, we hear you, we understand what you guys do, whether it's work-wise or it's accolades or anything that they do, we want to showcase that. And that'll be through our entire administration next year.
The student body president, and my current view of it, I think it needs a touch-up. I think in all things, you know, just because something is working or to some extent has been working doesn't mean it cannot be improved. And I think if we're looking at it as one-dimensional, then we're always going to come back to the same issues that we have, and we're still going to have these elections where people have to run that aren't familiar with SGA, but we can have people there already that knows the layouts and are able to take charge and be able to say, okay, so this needs to be fixed, let's put somebody here, this needs to be fixed, let's put somebody here. And I currently think that the SGA student body president, the touch-up that it needs, I think there's some new energy that needs to be there for that to happen. And I think a strong woman like Inkofa Billups is exactly what student government needs in order to have that shakeup, in order to be able to recognize the students and start treating it as actual student government rather than just a government where we get to write the positions on our resume. And I feel like that's what it has been for the past couple of years, and it needs a change.
Okay. So many students who are minorities at Marist feel it's not inclusive or unwelcoming. How would you change and improve the environment in the student body?
Sure. I mean, I'd like to answer this and also, you know, have John answer this as well. But one thing that we're really interested and really passionate about is making sure that it is inclusive, not exclusive. There are many social circles on campus, and there are many different people, and we want to make sure that it's a very universal environment. So how we do that is through the communication and getting the feedback, but also just to make sure that everybody is represented, whether that be Game Society, ARCO, Naturally Fox, CPSU. I had the pleasure of working with Ted and Inkofa last semester when we did our School Spirit Initiative. And so that's something that we also want to continue, is just making sure that we do those projects, but also that we are communicating with every single person on campus, because it is important to represent everybody, and it is important to have that specific communication, whether it be student body president, whether it be a resident senator, anybody. John, you want to say?
Right, I would agree. I think that it's true that from sort of like a surface outside level, Marist can seem pretty monogamous in the type of students that, you know, come here and make up the student body. What I think a lot of people don't realize, though, is that our student body is full of, you know, rich diversity of lots of people from many different cultural backgrounds, socioeconomic backgrounds, religious backgrounds, you know, you name it. The issue that Chris and I see is that these students aren't being highlighted to the, you know, extent that they should be. So one thing that I think is important to Chris and I is, you know, coming back to the idea that like college is for learning, and these students who, you know, make up the standard Marist student, you know, we want to create ways to highlight the students that are going unnoticed, so that more people can realize, you know, the immense power that our student body would have if we included truly everyone.
I actually, as a person of color and as a minority on this campus, there has been a shift in the recent years, and I think this is an experience that people of color who have been here for the past 3 years or the past 4 years can see, because as the classes have increased in numbers and diversity, I think that we are now creating our communities in different ways. So for me, it wasn't, I did not wait until I became the Deputy of Inclusion in SGA in order to make sure that we had a community. Before Nkofa even ran, we spoke about the different ways that we can make sure that different people of color on this campus have a form of community. And she has an amazing job with that. And in my position, it has not only focused on people of color, but also different people who are minorities. So when you have your, different people of different races, those who are disabled, those who are of a different sexual orientation or sexual identity, gender identity, all of those, we try to some extent make sure that they feel included in everything that we do. And all of my board meetings that I have with Lauren Palacios, who's the VP of Inclusion, we make sure that if we're doing an event or some type of action or policy or we want something to change for the students, we make sure that those students are there. So these are all things that have been in the work, and I think that question, as much as I appreciate it, it does not look at the background and how much work that has been done thus far. And many of the people that came before us, such as Brianna Adams, they put the groundwork for us and those seeds, and we have started to make them grow and blossom. And I believe that we can continue to do that in our administration.
To briefly continue off with that, even in my time being back on campus since my sophomore year, I've seen a change. And for me, I remember it was a tough transition back from Florence. It was a total culture shock. But seeing the change and being able to look back and see that Marist is making steps in creating spaces and resources for students of colors and all students. One of the things that the leaving last board of the Black Student Union said to me was the Black Student Union isn't just a club, it is a resource. And if anything shook me, that was what shook me. I was like, okay, God, they're gonna come to me for everything. Like, now I have to be mom number 2 on campus. This is so much responsibility. But it's true. As a Black student on campus, you want to feel like you're able to reach out to anybody when you need something. And I think that's why it was difficult for a lot of students of color on campus, is because there wasn't enough representation and creation of spaces for us where we felt comfortable to reach out to all the resources. But thank God for the Cultural and Center of Multicultural Services, CMA, correct?
Yes.
As well as the Black Student Union and several other initiatives on campus that allow us to get comfortable on campus and fall into the Marist culture seamlessly.
What initiatives do you hope to create on campus?
Sure. So one of our largest initiatives next semester will be the open forum, but we also want to focus on the real issues. And one of those real issues that we're really garnering for next semester is sexual assault. We know that it's a very prominent issue on campus, something that it's very uncomfortable to talk about, but we know that we want to make sure that it is handled and accounted for. We want to make sure that those people can comfortably go to resources on campus and express those emotions and expressed in a very diplomatic but also very understanding way, so that they can go to those resources and say, yes, I've had to go through a very traumatic and difficult experience, but there's going to be a nice, easy process that they can go through. Aside from that, we also want to make sure that they are comfortable and they're also understanding that we are there for them. So our job is to build that community and understand that even though it may be a challenge, we want to make sure that we're the resource for them.
Would you like to add anything, John?
I mean, I could talk about revitalizing the student center, but that's a little more important.
All right.
So to add on to Chris's point, one of the biggest things for me as a sexual assault survivor, one of the biggest things for me was actually starting to work on sexual assault awareness on this campus. And I actually, for the first time this year, I was able to tell my story and all of that. I had an interview, and I've been part of these projects. And I'm smiling because I've gotten to the point where I can now tell my story. But I had a meeting about 2 weeks ago where I met with different groups on campus, and it mirrored the Heritage Month initiative that Freddie, Deb, and myself started, where we celebrate different cultural months. So Hispanic Heritage Month and Black History Month. So I wanted to mirror that for Women's History Month. And although sexual assault is not solely a woman's issue, it is something that sexual violence, women has to encounter almost on a daily basis. So for Women's History Month, we have a couple of different events that we have lined up on awareness, on education, on all of these different things concerning sexual assault. That is one of the pillars that we will be tackling for our administration if we are elected, if we are granted the honor to be elected. But aside from that, the different type of events that we have hosted throughout the campus, we had a Night of the Apollo, which if anyone is familiar with that, which is Showtime at the Apollo, and that's an amazing event that we did last year where many different people of different cultures, different backgrounds were able to show off their talents and be able to show us who they are. We had the culture dinner dens. These are all things that have happened and we hope to build on. And many of the other things, I personally don't care for how SGA is perceived because I believe it is in our actions that we will see SGA. I don't care for people not knowing what SGA is. I think if we were to do what people wanted us to do, then we will have known what SGA is. If we did our job correctly, if all of SGA did its job correctly, then everyone will know that the resource of SGA is.
Well, I want to thank you all for coming, John, Chris, Ankofa, and Ted. So the SGA presidential debate is on Thursday. It begins at 9:30 in the Student Center, or you can watch the Marist College television live stream on Facebook. Online elections will take place next week, beginning at 8 a.m. on Monday, the 26th, and will close at 3 p.m. on Wednesday, the 28th. For MCTV, I'm Jamie Caniglia. Now back to Jillian and Samantha.